Hey folks, in today's video, we are going to talk about the ultimate way to build sliders inside of a Shopify theme. Now, I've watched tons of different videos and I've been a professional developer working on Shopify sites for years, and everyone and their dog has an opinion on how to build a slider in Shopify. This video, I'm going to tell you right now, is the ultimate guide on how to build sliders inside of Shopify. I've built an app called Flickity that focuses on adding professional sliders into Shopify themes. And so I've tried all the different slider packages. I've built hundreds, if not thousands, of different sliders inside of Shopify. And so this will be a go-to tutorial moving forward on how to build sliders inside of Shopify. So with all that being said, in today's video, we are going to learn the first part on how to build a slider like the one that I'm showing you here, which has different settings to adjust how many slides we want to show per screen. Also, we'll learn how we could loop it and autoplay and the autoplay duration and all that good stuff. Also, it'll be mobile optimized and work on all different screen sizes. So the first thing to consider with building a slider is which slider package should you pick? Well, there's tons. There's Slick, which might be slightly outdated at this point, but was very popular early on. Then there's Flickity, which again, similar to Slick, is in tons of different themes. And to this day, I'm still working on projects where I'm debugging Flickity, and it's still a good pick, but maybe slightly outdated. Then lastly, there is Swiper, which has tons of functionality baked into it and is a really good pick if you're trying to build a more complex slider. But for today's video, since we're just focusing on building a simple slider, I'm going to be using the dependency Blaze slider. And Blaze is really awesome for a few different reasons. One is it's ultra fast. It's 30 times faster than Slick and also 15 times faster than Swiper. It also has 0 layout shifts, so there's no weird popping and shrinking and scaling within the theme once it loads. Also, it has a bunch of really slick features built in, and it's ultra responsive, which, as we can see here, is super smooth and super nice. And so for building simple sliders such as card sliders or how it works sliders or article sliders, this is a really nice package to use because you're not adding a lot of load time to a theme by using Blaze. So with that being said, this is what we're going to try to build today. So obviously less sexy as the example I showed you at the start of the video, but it's a really good base to build on. I'll have also multiple parts to this series. And so in part 2 and 3, we'll talk about how to build the cards in our previous example and also how to build out more of the features and the pagination and so much more of that really fun stuff. But this will be our starting point. So hopping over into the code editor, if you haven't seen any of my prior tutorials, I highly recommend you check them out because I go over how to build a custom section and also app blocks. So I might kind of gloss over that slightly faster in this video, but check out those videos if you need a refresher. If you are just interested in building a slider, this is an awesome point to jump in. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new section, and I'm going to call this tutorial slider. And I'm going to start with a little bit of boilerplate code here just so that we can speed up this process. So I'm going to drop in that code in here, and I'll kind of walk you through the code step by step. So you'll notice a few things with this boilerplate code. One is that we have some schema. So we are referencing the name tutorial slider, and we have a little bit of a few settings in it. So we're defining a title and we're calling it tutorial slider. We have a color picker and some custom CSS. And again, I go over this in a prior video. The other thing we have is just some basic markup over here. So we're really just saying that we have a basic section, and within the section, we're going to render out a block. So this will be a nested block, and the nested block that we'll render out is called layout slider, which is something that I've already built, but we're going to build our own layout slider from scratch in this video. So to do that right now, what we're going to do is in the blocks folder, we're going to create a new file and we're going to call this tutorial slider.liquid. And in this file, we're going to add in a little bit of code. So the first thing that we will add in is the Blaze HTML. So if I go back over to our setup guide, which I'll link in the description, when I hit get started and go to installation, and then in installation, if you go to the setup tutorial, we'll be following this basic HTML markup. And so instead of just, copying and pasting that in, again, I have a little bit of code to speed up the process. And in my code, I have the same structure as the HTML markup. So you'll notice that I'm initializing a Blaze slider that has a Blaze container, that has a Blaze track container. So the track is what holds everything together. And then in the track, we'll have each one of these slides, which in our case is those images that I was showing you. Also, you'll notice that we're already getting a little bit of an underline for block ID. And I will just add in a little bit of liquid to define that. And this is something that it's not necessary, but I like to do. I like to add a block ID to every single one of my blocks, just in case if I need to reference it at some point when I'm styling or creating custom logic or anything. It's really nice just to have a unique identifier for each one of the blocks. And if you inspect your code with the block ID, you'll always notice that a new block ID is generated for every single block. Great, so we got that done. The next thing that we need to do is add in our schema. And our schema, again, is nothing fancy here. So I will paste it in down below. And in the schema, really what we're just saying is we're going to call this tutorial slider. And one thing to note is that we're rendering out a block, which is called image. And this is, again, another custom block that I have built. So now if we go back into the theme customizer to see what we have cooking here, we can add in our tutorial slider section that we created at the beginning of the video. Then we can add in our block, which says tutorial slider. Now, one thing that I do want to point out is in order to reference this tutorial slider with the Blaze markup in it, we need to go into our section that we created and we need to reference the block type of tutorial slider, which is the Blaze slider that we are currently creating. Once we have that done, then we'll be able to select it in the Shopify theme customizer. Now, you may also notice that when I hit add block within the slider, I'm able to add in an image. So I'm just going to add in a couple different images here. And you may be curious what this image block consists of. Again, I can leave a link in the description for this code for you to reference, maybe in a paste bin or something like that. But essentially what's in this image is a pretty simple code. If we go down to the schema first, we're really just making this into a schema block. And we have an image picker, a URL for the image, border radius for the image, all within the schema. And then our markup just consists of our like a basic image block where we're rendering out an image using liquid. And I guess I have a few advanced techniques in here, like I'm referencing sizes and widths and so much more up top. So we'll dive more into creating our own unique card in the next video for our slider. For now, this is just a bit of a placeholder and you'll be able to grab this code within the YouTube description. So, okay, awesome. Just to back up for a moment, at this point in the tutorial, we are able to create a tutorial slider section. Inside that tutorial slider section, we have a tutorial slider block that is like the wrapper for all of the different images. And this will be our main slider. And then we have all of our different images that are just stacked because the slider isn't initialized yet. So let's go back into the code, add in everything else we need to initialize it, and then we'll be able to hop back into the editor to see how things look. So going back into the code over here, what we will need to do is add in these two lines up top just to initialize the slider. So I'll go up here and add in the packages. So I'm adding in the package for the Blaze slider JavaScript and also the CSS. And there you go. Now you can see it's already kind of shaping up. One thing that we'll want to do and that you may be noticing at this point is even though that it's working and it's functioning properly here, we'll need to um, add in a little bit of JavaScript so that we can take control of the slider so that we can adjust how many slides we want to display per screen and how fast we want the slider to move. And there's a bunch of different settings that you can dive into within Blaze. And they have actually a really good demo section down over here where it shows you how the different settings work. You can adjust the slide gap. You can adjust the transition duration. You can also adjust if you want them to autoplay and all that good stuff. So in order to make that work, we will add in some JavaScript below our slider. So I'm just going to add that in here. And in this JavaScript, what we're doing is we're waiting for the DOM to load. After it's loaded, we're referencing the Blaze slider. So we're referencing this div over here, and we were saying create a new slider. And you know what? Instead of the default Blaze slider settings, we want to show 3.2 slides. So if I go back into our theme customizer over here, you'll notice perfect. We're seeing 3.2 slides on desktop. We're seeing 1.2 on mobile and all that good stuff. So that's really great. We can also even do some stuff like if we want like an infinite loop on desktop, we could set this to true. And you'll notice now it's an infinite loop. So that's looking good. Actually, you may have noticed it was a little choppy. So if we actually put this to 2.2, that gives us enough slides for it to actually loop through. So now that's looking like a proper infinite loop, which is awesome. So the last thing that I just want to cover, which will help with CLS and the jumpiness of the slider, is that partly what makes Blaze so special is that we're able to manipulate the slider on load using CSS so that we're not having the screen jump around and course correct as soon as the slider loads in, which you may have seen in themes, and it's so awfully annoying. So with that being said, again, I highly recommend that you check out the documentation, and they got a bunch of really cool information on how to fix layout shifts and what makes layout shifts so special. And so it shows you before execution, after execution, and all that good stuff. But for the sake of time and in this video, I'm just going to add some CSS and walk you through it. Awesome. So the CSS that I added in is we're just saying that the Blaze track will just have an overflow so we don't have, any weird cropping issues on either side of the cards. And we're also saying that for the Blaze slider odd load, we want to have 3 slides, which I think we adjusted to 2.2. So we'll have to adjust that there. So now you can see it says 2.2. So on load, 2.2 slides will show. And then for the max width of 768. So for kind of a tabletish larger phone range, we have 2.2, which is correct. And for the mobile, we'll want 1.2. So I'll just correct that to 1.2. So essentially now when this slider loads in, this CSS will style the slider so it looks accurate to what the slider will look like after the JavaScript executes. Awesome. So again, as a recap of this video, we we went over different sliders and which one to choose for your project. We went over the section called tutorial slider, and we created a block slider in it, which we're looking at here. And then we also loosely took a look at rendering out this image block within the slider. Awesome. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. But stay tuned because this will be a multi-part series. Anyways, if you found this useful, subscribe to my YouTube channel and take care.